10 most beautiful states in the USA today, you guys. I'm really, really excited. I love seeing the different aspects of the USA. Every state is different, which actually blows my mind. And the scenery in every state is also very, very different. I assume, for me, I think that Colorado is going to be in here and Utah. I recently saw some videos of Utah and it looks stunning there. So I guess we'll see. And I think Colorado is really, really beautiful. Every picture I've seen of Colorado, it's stunning. So yeah, let me know if you guys agree or disagree with this video. Are there any states that you think should be on here? But yeah, without any further ado, we're gonna get straight into today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching with me today.
Before I say anything else, I have to say it isn't nice to judge. Every state is both beautiful and ugly in its own way. Take California, for example. On the one hand, you have Yosemite and Big Sur, but on the other hand,
downtown LA.
You have Skid Row and Stockton. To be completely honest with you, this was one of the hardest lists I've ever made because I really love the nature in so many states. But the West really is best when it comes to beautiful and unique scenery. Now, don't get me wrong, I grew up in the Northeast, and while there is a lot of charm to the small towns and wooded habitats it just doesn't compare to the majestic vistas and untouched wilderness found in the West. But don't worry, there are some eastern states on the list too. It does have a special place in my heart after all. Anyways, I ranked the states by their natural landmarks, national and state parks, ecodiversity, and accessibility to nature. Forget about good jobs or city amenities.
All in one country,
who cares about money when you're surrounded by this? Probably goes without saying, but this video isn't for the material girls. So here's to you fellow nature lovers, and if you aren't a nature lover, well, keep watching to see why you should be. Because these are the top 10 most beautiful states in America.
Scenery and
Number
stuff
10,
like that.
Maine. I know you're probably thinking, what? That doesn't look like Maine. Well, that's cause it isn't. It honestly was really hard to choose which state to put at number 10, so I'm starting the list off with an honorable mention. South Dakota. Wait, what? South Dakota? Yeah, it might come as a surprise if you've never been here, but that's because it's incredibly underrated. I was blown away on my first visit, and not just because the wind cave.
To be fair, I feel like no one has ever told me to go to South Dakota before, to be fair. Let me know if it's worth going to. It is number 11, so let me know.
Natural grasslands to the Badlands to Spearfish Canyon and Custer State Park to the Black Hills, which are a heck of a lot more than just 4 dead guys' faces on a rock. The diversity of nature in the Mount Rushmore state is mind-boggling. I seriously have no clue why it's one of the least visited states in the country. But enough with my South Dakota obsession. Actual number 10 is Maine. You might not have given the pine.
So I guess a lot of people do go to South Dakota then to see Mount Rushmore, right? That's a huge tourist attraction, I would assume. Okay, makes sense. I didn't know that Mount Rushmore was in South Dakota. I actually didn't know where it was, to be honest with you. If I had to guess, it wouldn't have been South Dakota. So you learn something new every day. I've learned something new from this video already.
Country state much thought if you live outside of New England. But as a New Englander myself, my family would take trips up here almost every summer. And let me tell ya, it is beautiful. Outside the Portland metro area, no, not the one in Oregon, the state is pretty much just untouched, gorgeous nature and really cute, charming small towns, which means there are endless opportunities for adventure, whether you want to hike, ski, swim, kayak, hunt, or fish. And if you're lucky, or maybe unlucky if you get too close, you might even see a moose. Maine's honestly one of the best kept secrets on the East Coast. From jutting cliffs to stunning beaches, if you include all the islands, Maine actually has more miles of coastline than even California. And
that does not look like Maine to me. I did not know anything like that existed in Maine. Holy bejeebers. I feel like everything I've ever known is just like out the window so far. Jeez Louise.
Speaking of islands, have you seen Mount Desert Island? It's home to Acadia National Park, which is pretty much the crown jewel of Maine. There really is no other place in America quite like it. Number 9,
Wow.
Michigan. Now this might be surprising too, but Michigan's actually another state with more coastline than California. Granted, it's just surrounded by really big lakes, but they're so big that it almost feels like the ocean. You may have heard of the famously old-fashioned Mackinac Island, where cars are forbidden and horses and buggies transport you back in time around the Victorian town. But have you heard of Isle Royale National Park? The 400-island archipelago is actually the least visited national park in the contiguous United States, mainly because the only way to get there is a 3-hour-long ferry. But if you make the trip, or honestly just go anywhere in the Upper Peninsula, the wildlife and scenery you encounter will literally feel like a movie. And let's not forget the
Wow, interesting. I've been to Michigan, but just Detroit, so I haven't been to the beautiful parts of the state, so I should go back. I should definitely go back. I've heard a lot about the lakes there. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people have like lake houses in Michigan. That's one of the places where you have a lake house that you go to for like family vacation and stuff. I heard that somewhere. I don't know.
Rocks National Lakeshore, the isolated hilly beaches at Sleeping Bear Dunes, and Headlands International Dark Sky Park, which is one of the best places to see the stars, and if you're lucky, the Northern Lights. I could go on and on about the beauty of Michigan. I mean, there are freaking ice caves and a rock jutting out of the water that looks like a turnip.
Oh my gosh.
Number 8.
That's
Oregon.
crazy.
When you think of Oregon, you probably just think of hipsters in Portland, or maybe something like this or this. But the Beaver State has pretty much every type of biome imaginable. You probably didn't know this was in Oregon or this. The ecosystems here are seriously so dang diverse that each region feels like its own country. From beautiful beaches bordered by sinkholes, sand dunes, and giant rock islands, to lush national forests teeming with literally thousands of streams and waterfalls, to charming artsy towns like Ashland, Bend, and Hood River, the entire state just feels enchanted. The Cascade Range also runs through the middle of Oregon and is home to some of the most beautiful mountains in the country, and Crater Lake National Park, which is literally a giant blue lake at the top of a volcanic crater. It's honestly one of the most unique and gorgeous settings I've ever seen. And I haven't even mentioned the eastern half of the state, with places like the Painted Hills and Owyhee Canyonlands that you'll swear must be photoshopped. Oh, and there's also Hell's Canyon, aka the deepest gorge in North America, with a nearly 8,000...
I'm in shock. I'm so sorry. This is all in one state. Oregon. I had no clue that Oregon had all this. Oh my goodness. Oregon? I don't really know how to say it, to be honest with you. Oregon? I'm shook. Jeez Louise.
The Snake River. Needless to say, there's a lot more to Oregon than just Portland.
Wow.
Number 7. Colorado. Denver might be overrated, but there's a reason why so many people are moving to, or at least vacationing in the Centennial State. Take a drive on I-70 and you'll see why. Every curve of the interstate reveals a breathtaking view of the Rockies before following the Eagle and Colorado rivers through the canyons into a landscape that looks like Mars. And this is honestly the least scenic route. The mountains are just gorgeous all around, with 58 peaks exceeding 14,000 feet. By far the most of any state. In fact, there are only 4 states in the country that even have one 14,000 footer. But while the Front Range is magical, Colorado is so much more than just a beautiful mountainous region full of world-class ski resorts and hikes. Head to the southwest near Durango and you'll find some of the most well-preserved Native American pueblos at Mesa Verde National Park. Or you can head to Colorado Springs to find some of the most beautiful red rock formations at Garden of the Gods. And Colorado's also home to the tallest sand dunes in North America. This state is honestly so diverse that even if you spent your entire life here, it still wouldn't be long enough to explore all the unique environments the area has to offer. Number 6. Washington. Seattle and rain are probably the first 2 words that come to mind when you think of Washington. But this state is so much more. Don't get me wrong, on the days where it isn't misty and rainy and you can actually see, Seattle's one of the most picturesque cities in the world. But the constant rain kinda is what makes the Evergreen State stay, well, evergreen. Speaking of evergreen, North Cascades National Park might be one of the most beautiful places on Earth. I mean, have you seen Mount Shuksan? Washington? Well, probably not, because it's also one of the least visited national parks, which is weird since it's only a 2-hour drive from Seattle. But even closer to Seattle are the majestic Olympic Mountains, and even closer is Mount Rainier, which is the most prominent peak in the continental United States, and also an active volcano.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, I'm not here to judge Seattleites' life decisions. It really was hard to choose which Pacific Northwest state to put higher on this list, but while Oregon is very geographically diverse, Washington is even more diverse. The Evergreen State is home to 63 different mountain ranges, the largest expanse of temperate rainforest in the U.S.
Oh my God, I
tons of
wanna go
waterfalls,
there.
rivers, lakes, and ecologically unique islands,
is
the Columbia
incredible,
River
you
Gorge
guys.
and the Scablands, the Palouse Hills, and charming mountain towns like Leavenworth. You know, maybe it is worth living under an active
This is
volcano to be near all that.
Wow.
Number
I had
5,
no idea.
Utah. From the Rocky
Utah
Mountains
is
to
on
desert
here.
canyons, it isn't hard to see why Utah has the 3rd most national parks in the country. You've probably heard of Zion and Arches, and no, that's not the moon, that's just Canyonlands National Park. There's also Bryce Canyon and Capitol
How
Reef
does this
National
even
Park,
exist,
and a
honestly?
boatload of national monuments and forests, which are equally as impressive. As you can see, Utah shares a lot of similarities with Colorado and Arizona, but also has a lot of uniquely Utah things too. And I'm not talking about fry
Is it
sauce.
the-
Besides the national parks, there are 43
Salt
state
something?
parks, and no, I'm not about to list them all, but just look at how pretty they are. The coolest thing about Utah, in my opinion, though, is that most of the
This
nature
doesn't
is
look
completely
real.
untouched, and aside from the super popular national parks and ski resorts like Zion and Park City, it's almost never overcrowded with tourists.
Love
if it had
it.
a coastline, Utah would probably be number 1 on this list, but it doesn't. And before you say, hey, what about the Great Salt Lake? Nobody actually likes how the Great Salt Lake looks, or smells for that matter. Number 4. California. I know a lot of you are probably wondering, why isn't California number 1? I mean, it is the most geographically diverse state in the country by far, housing nearly every type of climate zone in the world. But the one thing keeping it out of even the top 3 on my list is just all the overcrowding and pollution.
yeah.
Even though most of the national parks are 4 to 5 hours out of the cities, there are still so many people. Sure, there are a few secret spots where you can find some peace and quiet, but if you aren't a local and don't know what you're doing, you're never gonna find them. What you will find is 3,400 miles of pristine coastline and some of the best beaches in the world. To the south, you have La Jolla and Laguna, but more north, there's also Carmel, Moonstone Beach, Bowling Ball Beach,
Oh my
and the
gosh!
incredible Big Sur. But actually, don't go there because the locals do everything they can to hide the best spots from tourists. So why don't you head on over to one of the 9 national parks or over 300 state parks instead? Both numbers being the
Oh
most of
my
any state. Try
gosh.
Yosemite, the Redwoods, or even Death Valley. Seriously, I cannot
Death
state this
Valley.
enough. Almost every type of scenery imaginable is here. The problem is that people, litter, and their pollution is destroying
Yeah.
the environment, and not nearly enough funds are being allocated to protect it. But what can I say? It's not like money grows on trees. And even if it did, California would have probably burned through it by now.
forgot.
Pun intended. Number 3. Hawaii. Hawaii is by far the smallest state on this list, so I guess it goes to show
Okay,
that size
okay.
doesn't matter. Because what the Aloha state lacks in size, it makes up for in sheer beauty. There really isn't a single part of the islands that isn't jaw-droppingly gorgeous. Each of the 7 inhabited islands is entirely different in its own way, but some notable views are the Nepali Coast and Waimea Canyon on Kauai, the Bamboo Forest, Honokohau
Oh, cool.
Falls, and the Road to Hana on
Look how
Maui,
green
the
it
sea
is,
cliffs
you
of
guys.
Molokai, Lanikai Beach, and the
It's just
Coco
like
Head
green
Crater
and
on
blue,
Oahu,
that's it.
and Mauna Kea, and Volcanic
Maybe
National
not.
Park on Big Island. In fact, the Big Island alone has 11 of the world's 13 climate zones. From the history to the culture to the waterfalls, volcanoes, hiking, and world-class snorkeling and
Sure,
surfing,
snorkeling.
Hawaii is one of the most unique and diverse states in the country. Not to mention the nearly perfect weather with tropical temperatures and 270 sunny days a year.
Paradise.
Number 2. Montana. In contrast to the last 2 states,
Montana.
Montana has exactly 0 miles of coastline. So how the heck did it make it so high on this list? If you're seriously asking that question, you need to visit the Big Sky State, where yes, the sky really does seem bigger. We all know Colorado is the Rocky Mountain state, but honestly, the Rockies in Montana remain unparalleled. The mountains loom majestically over vast and colorful valleys dotted by the lakes, rivers, and wildlife that run through them. A trip to Yellowstone will leave you bewildered by the power of nature, but the lesser-known Glacier National Park is actually, in my opinion, the most beautiful national park in America. And in the eastern half of the state, you have a complete contrast with places like Makoshika State Park with its badlands and dinosaur fossils. There are actually 55 state parks in the state, including the Lewis and Clark Caverns, Flathead Lake, Palisade and Kootenai Falls, and Bighorn Canyon. But honestly, the entire state could be a national park. Drive through just about anywhere here, and you'll have a hard time finding a view that doesn't look like a painting. Even in the urban areas like Missoula or Bozeman. And on a clear night, you might even see the northern lights. Now, before we get to number one, leave a like, subscribe, and let me know what you think the most beautiful state is. But without further ado,
I don't know. Wait, what do I think it is? What do we have left? The most beautiful? I don't know. Is it Wyoming? It must be. Or North Dakota? I have no idea. Let's try. I'm gonna go Wyoming.
Number one, Alaska.
Dang
Speaking
it.
of the Northern Lights, could number one really be anything but? Alaska is more grand, vast, and untamed than any other state. And it's not even close. It even has more coastline than every...
Until a month or two ago, when I watched a video on Alaska, I thought Alaska was just like ice. Honestly, I thought it was just ice, snow. It was dark all the time. But apparently it's really diverse there with the scenery. So I guess we're gonna find out more about it right now.
The other state combined. And that coast varies widely from the volcanic Aleutian Islands to glacier-lined black sand beaches to craggy cliffs to forested fjords. Sure, it does get really cold in some parts, but there is a heck of a lot more to Alaska than just snow-capped mountains. The Last Frontier is home to 8 national parks, each featuring incredibly different landscapes, ranging from Denali, home of the tallest mountain in North America, to Kenai Fjords, Gates of the Arctic, Glacier Bay, and Wrangell St. Elias, which is actually the largest national park in the nation. And while there are also 156 state parks to boot, Alaska's still the least visited state in the US, which might be due to the fact that there aren't many roads leading to the parks. You'll actually have to charter a plane to get to most of them. But that's also why the population density is just 1 person per square mile. So there are literally thousands of miles of untouched unique wilderness, and you're probably more likely to run into a bear, moose, or muskox than another person in the nature here. Where else can you find over half the world's glaciers, fjords all along the coast, rainforests, volcanoes, the 10 tallest mountains in the country, and even sand dunes? Alaska is by far the most beautiful state in America.
Alaska! Shout out Alaska! Oh my gosh, let me know what you guys thought about that video. Oregon really surprised me, as you could probably see on my face during this video. I cannot believe that Oregon has all of that in one state. That is shocking. And the videos and the photos, it didn't even look like it was on this earth, let alone in one state, let alone Oregon. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Oregon. Yeah, let alone in one state, let alone Oregon. Of all states, I had no clue. Wow. But again, I still really want to go to Colorado and Utah. The scenery just looks beautiful there, and Colorado looks nice in general. Yeah, I would totally live in Colorado. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought about this video. Thank you so much for watching today. If you feel like there should have been a state on here that wasn't, leave a comment down below. I'm very curious to hear. I love watching videos like this just because it looks, isn't like an international tourist as I am to the USA, or a foreigner or whatnot. Sometimes we are kind of bombarded with the cities we should go to this city, that city, you know, the main places to go to, the tourist places. But I really like looking beyond the cities at the nature and the scenery, because I learned so much about the cities and stuff. It's just nice to it's nice to look at the absolutely stunning, naturally occurring parts of the country. And it really just blows my mind. And it really reminds me how big the USA is, honestly. Like Oregon, all of that was happening in one state, which is incredible to me. Absolutely incredible. So thank you guys so much for watching with me. Leave a comment if you do want to down below, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye guys. Mwah.